Welcome to Books and Bytes. Today we're diving deep into a really fascinating topic.
We are. We're looking at those inner obstacles, the things that get in the way of creativity and living a life with purpose.
And our guide for this exploration is Steven Pressfield's book, The War of Art. It's a nonfiction look at the challenges, pretty much anyone faces when they try to create something or follow a calling.
Right. So our mission really is to unpack Pressfield's core ideas. We want to identify the main enemy he talks about.
And figure out how to overcome it. We're looking for those practical insights you can actually use in your own life.
Okay, so let's start with the big one, the central concept. Pressfield names this primary obstacle. He calls it resistance. He describes it as this invisible kind of insidious force that stops us from doing our most important work. The work that helps us live that unlived life inside.
Right, that feeling like when you sit down to write and suddenly need to clean the fridge.
Exactly. That's resistance. And Pressfield argues it's the root of a lot of unhappiness because it stops us from tapping into our potential, our genius, like that inner spirit.
He uses that John Lee Hooker quote, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Because it's in him and it's got to come out. Resistance is what tries to keep it locked in.
Precisely. And it's very specific about what it goes after. It targets activities that involve, say, long-term growth, health, integrity.
Anything from our higher nature, as he puts it.
Yeah. Creative work, starting a business, sticking to a diet, spiritual practice, acts of courage, helping others, even big commitments like marriage or raising kids, anything moving you upward.
So if it feels important, resistance is probably going to show up. He gives it some characteristics too, right? First, it's invisible.
Invisible, yes. You feel it, like this repelling energy field, but you can't see it or touch it.
But it feels internal, not like outside obstacles.
He's very clear on this. It's internal. It comes from within you. The battle is inside.
And it sounds pretty nasty. He calls it insidious.
Oh, absolutely. It lies. It makes up excuses. It'll tempt you with easy stuff or bully you into doubting yourself. It has no conscience. It's just full of it, as he says.
Like a relentless movie villain, Alien or the Terminator.
That's the comparison he uses. Because you can't reason with it. Its only goal is to stop your work, to destroy that potential. It's implacable.
But then, confusingly, he says it's impersonal.
Right. It feels personal, like it's attacking you, but he argues it's more like a force of nature, like gravity. It just opposes creative action. It's not personal, even though it feels that way.
Okay, this is the really useful part for me. He says it's infallible. It points true north.
This is key. Think of it like a compass. The more resistance you feel towards something,
The more fear or dread.
exactly, the more certain you can be that that's precisely what you need to do for your growth. The resistance is pointing right at it.
So fear is actually a good sign.
It's a great sign. It tells you what you have to do. And everyone feels this. It's universal. You are not alone in this struggle.
And there are no days off. It never sleeps.
Never sleeps. You fight it every single day. He mentions Henry Fonda, still getting stage fright at 75. The fear doesn't necessarily go away, but you show up anyway.
And it's serious. It plays for keeps.
Totally. It aims to kill your genius, your unique gift, the contribution only you can make. It's a death match for your potential.
Where does its power come from?
Us, our fear. Its strength is directly proportional to our fear of facing it and doing the work. Master the fear, and you weaken resistance.
And it only opposes movement in one direction, upward.
Yeah, from a lower sphere to a higher one, towards art, contribution, health, courage. Going downhill, like taking an easier, less meaningful path, resistance doesn't care. It lets you go.
Because you're retreating. And it hits hardest near the finish line.
Oh, definitely. That's when it launches its biggest attack. Like Odysseus's crew opening the bag of winds when they could see home. You have to be really vigilant then, not self-sabotage.
And it can even use people around us. Recruit allies.
Yeah, this can show up as discouragement or even sabotage from loved ones. Because when you start beating your resistance, it can trigger theirs.
The crab in the bucket thing.
Exactly. They might try to pull you back down. The best thing you can do, ironically, is just keep doing your work. Be the example.
Okay, so that's the enemy defined. How does it actually show up? What are the symptoms in day-to-day life?
Well, the number one symptom, the most common, is procrastination.
I'll start tomorrow.
Yep. Easy to rationalize, but it can become a habit, putting off your real life indefinitely. The good news is, Pressfield says you have the power to break that cycle right now. Just start.
Instant gratification is another one.
The quick fixes. Scrolling social media, shopping, binge watching, gossip, sometimes leaning too hard on substances or distractions. They offer shallow relief but keep you from the deeper work. That empty feeling afterward. That's a clue it was resistance.
What about creating drama? Trouble or self-dramatization?
Sometimes it's easier to get attention by being messy or creating chaos than by doing the quiet, focused work. Things like chronic lateness, picking fights, even hypochondria can be ways of resistance manifests, using up energy you need for creation.
Self-medication, too. He connects that to consumer culture.
He does. He suggests, maybe controversially, that sometimes we're quick to adopt labels or use substances pushed by marketing instead of doing the harder work of self-understanding and confronting the underlying issues that resistance feeds on.
Victimhood fits in there too, right?
Yes. Adopting a condition or always having a cross to bear can be a way to avoid taking responsibility, to get attention passively. It's the opposite of owning your power and doing your work.
And just plain unhappiness, that feeling of misery.
Absolutely. That low-grade boredom, restlessness, guilt, self-disgust, that's often the sound of unaddressed resistance. If ignored, it can spiral into bigger problems, vices, even clinical issues. He quotes John Lennon like, "Consumerism doesn't fix it. Only turning inward and doing the work does."
What about criticizing people who are doing their work?
That often comes directly from our own frustration, our own unlived life bubbling up as resentment when we see others succeeding or trying. People who are genuinely creating rarely tear others down. They usually encourage them.
And fear itself. You said it's a symptom, but also a compass.
Exactly. Resistance feels like fear. But that fear and even self-doubt can actually be allies. They signal that you care, that you're aiming high. He mentions actors choosing roles because they're scared. The fear points to what matters for your soul's growth.
So self-doubt isn't necessarily bad.
Often it's a good sign. If you're worried you're not good enough, you probably care deeply. The real frauds are often overly confident. The genuine creator feels the doubt.
And lastly, grandiose fantasies. Dreaming of stardom instead of working.
Classic amateur move. Focusing on the rewards, fame, money instead of the process, the craft. The pro knows success is a byproduct of showing up and doing the work consistently. Okay, so we've defined this enemy, resistance. How do we fight back? Pressfield's answer is simple but profound. You turn pro.
And that's not about getting paid, right? It's a mindset.
Exactly. It's an internal shift, contrasting the professional with the amateur. The amateur plays for fun, it's part-time, they get too wrapped up in the outcome, terrified of failing.
Where's the professional?
Plays for keeps. It's a full-time commitment, a vocation. They love the work so much they dedicate their life to it, showing up whether they feel like it or not, whether they get applause or not.
Pressfield talks about his own life having a clear before and after turning pro.
He does. It was a conscious decision, an act of will. It changes everything.
So what does that look like? What are the qualities of a pro?
It really starts with discipline. Rule number 1, show up every day, period. Like, it's your job. Doesn't matter if you're inspired, you show up.
No matter what. Sick, tired, whatever.
No matter what. And you stay on the job all day. You put in the hours. You finish the work for that day.
It's a long-term thing.
Definitely. It's a career, not a quick fling. The stakes feel high and real because it's about living authentically.
He also says the pro accepts payment. Well, why is that important if it's not just about money?
It creates psychological distance. Working for money, even aiming for it, helps you not over-identify with the work. You are not your manuscript or your painting. You do the work. This helps you handle rejection.
So criticism is about the work, not about you.
Precisely. It's feedback. You need that thicker skin. And related to that, the pro is patient. They understand it takes time. They're the tortoise, not the hare. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
They seek order to keep things tidy.
Yeah, mentally and physically. Clearing clutter, organizing your space. It creates room for the muse, reduces the chaos resistance thrives on.
And they don't romanticize the process too much.
They demystify it. They see it as a craft, focus on technique, the how, and trust the what and why will come. They act in anticipation of inspiration, like Somerset Maugham writing every morning, ready for inspiration if it showed up, but working regardless.
They act even when scared.
They know fear is part of the deal. Fonda felt it. You feel the fear and do the work anyway. Action dispels fear.
No excuses.
0 excuses. Giving in today makes it easier to give in tomorrow. Treat resistance like a pesky telemarketer. Just hang up, don't engage.
Play it as it lays. Deal with reality.
Accept the bad luck, the setbacks, the unfairness of the real world. Focus on what you can control, your effort, your attitude. Handle your insides, as he puts it.
And back to not over-identifying. Don't take failure or even success personally.
Essential. Keep your professional self separate from your ego. Fear of rejection is normal, but don't let it fuel resistance. Learn from feedback, good or bad, but self-validate based on your effort. Remember the Bhagavad Gita. You have the right to your labor, not the fruits. Get back to work tomorrow.
I like its idea of thinking of yourself as you, Inc.
It's a great mental tool, creates distance, makes you more objective. You can manage me, Inc., hire yourself, demand the results, handle the business side without letting your ego get crushed by every little thing.
So the pro beats resistance just by outlasting it.
Pretty much. Resistance is a bully powered by fear. The pro is just more determined. Keeps showing up. Like John Wayne in The Searchers. The critter that might just keep coming on.
And turning pro is a choice you make now.
Any second. It's an act of will.
Okay, so you turn pro, you start showing up. Pressfield says something else happens then. You start accessing the higher realm.
Yeah, this is where it gets a bit more mystical, maybe. He talks about supportive forces, muses, angels, but he says you can think of them impersonally too, like talent, instinct, gravity. The point is, there are forces aligned with creation, pushing back against resistance.
And they respond to the work itself.
He believes so. That consistent daily effort acts like a magnet. It attracts help from unseen forces. Serendipity kicks in. Ideas flow. The muse notices you're serious.
He contrasts resistance coming from hell and creation from heaven.
And professionalism in this view becomes about service, about egolessness, like being a knight facing inner dragons. You're serving something larger than yourself.
He even mentions his own practice, invoking the muse, like an ancient ritual.
Right. Like Xenophon saying, a commander's first duty is sacrifice. Pressfield shares how he'd say a specific invocation from Homer before writing. He tells that story about finishing his novel, totally missing Watergate because he was so focused, just showing up day after day, finally breaking through his own resistance. That discipline opened a door.
He brings in the actual Greek muses, daughters of memory.
And Socrates talking about heaven-sent madness, suggesting pure technique isn't enough. You need that divine spark, that inspiration the ancients attributed to these forces.
And William Blake's idea. Eternity is in love with the creations of time.
Meaning this higher, timeless dimension actually takes joy in what we managed to bring into being here. Like Beethoven's fifth existed as potential, but needed Beethoven, the human vessel, the genius, to make it real. The muse whispers these potentials to us.
There's power in just starting, too.
Huge power. That's the Goethe quote. Whatever you can do or dream you can, begin it. Boldness has genius, magic, and power in it. Begin it now. Pressfield sees that magic as these higher forces stepping in to help the moment you commit.
And also in keeping going.
Yes, the consistent work allows this. Deeper intelligence, separate from your conscious mind, to process things, to guide the work. It's like taking dictation sometimes. This intelligence enjoys the process. It wants to create through you.
He shares some powerful dreams that felt like messages from this intelligence.
Like the Largo dream, realizing the power was in him. Or the Eagle dream, understanding unseen things have weight and power. Guidance arriving when he was open and working.
This leads him to the ego and the self, the Jungian idea.
Right. He mentions Tom Laughlin's work with cancer patients, how facing death often shifts focus from the ego's concerns to the self's deeper calling, revealing unlived lives. It raises the question, could ignoring the self contribute to illness?
How does he define them? Ego versus self.
The ego is our conscious mind focused on survival in the world, managing day-to-day reality. The self is bigger, includes the ego, the unconscious, the soul, our connection to the divine. It's the source of dreams, intuition, our true potential. It speaks for the future, for growth.
And the internal battle is between these two.
That's the core conflict. The self wants to evolve, create. The ego wants stability, the status quo. So the ego attacks the self's urges through resistance because growth feels threatening to its control.
Which brings us back to fear. The master fear.
Not fear of failure, but the fear that we will succeed. The terror of actually stepping into our full power, becoming who we're meant to be. It feels dangerous, like we might lose our place in the tribe. But Pressfield argues it connects us to something truer, a deeper source.
Authentic self.
Exactly, the idea that we arrive with a unique destiny, a self to unfold. Our job isn't to become some ideal, but to discover and become who we already are.
And he makes a crucial distinction between defining yourself through hierarchy versus territory.
Hierarchy is all about rank, comparison, external validation. Where do I stand relative to others? This is death for an artist who needs to look inward. A hack writes hierarchically trying to guess the market instead of their own truth, like he almost did with Bagger Vance.
But territory?
Territory is about your connection to your work, your space, the desk, the studio, the practice. It's doing the work for its own sake. Like that coyote focused only on its patch of ground. A territory sustains you. It's a closed loop. You claim it by working it. It's fair. You get out what you put in. Ask yourself, would I do this if I were the last person on Earth? If yes, that's your territory.
And working your territory aligns you with those higher realm forces.
Yes. When you work territorially for the love of the work itself, you're serving that mystery, acting as a vehicle for creation, humbly facilitating something new coming into the world.
So the ultimate virtue for the artist is?
Contempt for failure. Like Leonidas' contempt for death. Focus on the territory, on the work, and you starve resistance. You sidestep the ego's fear.
The artist is a servant, an agent of the infinite.
Humble, willing instruments.
So if you're wondering, am I really a writer? Am I meant to do this? Pressfield's answer is pretty blunt.
Do it or don't do it. The answer is in the action. And he emphasizes that not doing your work, not sharing your unique gift doesn't just hurt you, it cheats the world. Your creative work is a gift. Don't let resistance keep it wrapped up.
Wow, powerful stuff. If this deep dive into Steven Pressfield's The War of Art has sparked something in you, definitely grab a copy of the book itself. It's packed with so much more. We've put a link in the description for you.
Yeah, it's a book you can return to again and again. And if you enjoyed this discussion and want more deep dives like it, please subscribe to Books and Bytes wherever you get your podcasts.
So here's something to think about. What's the one specific thing that resistance consistently tries hardest to stop you from doing?
And what might happen for you and for the world if you just decided to begin it now?
Thanks for joining us on Books and Bytes. Until next time.